This video is going to be showing you how to solo farm the Master Nightfall this week, which is the inverted Spire. Showing you how to get the platinum rank easily and get sub 20-minute runs. Now, depending on how high your power level is, depends on how quickly you can do these runs. If you want only 2-3 runs, that's fine. You don't need to farm it. Just use what you like using. As long as you've got Unstoppable and Barrier in your loadout, anything will work. As this is the easiest Nightfall this season. It's essentially like a Lake of Shadows, but for this season. It may be not as fast as Lake of Shadows, of course, but it is going to be the quickest one, and it's double loot, so it's worth farming it. So we're using a Warmind build with the exotic grain launcher Fighting Lion, which is a void primary grain launcher, so you get ammo off primary ammo bricks. And we've also got Warmind Decree on, so void splash damage has a chance to create Warmind cells. We've also paired that with Global Rage, which extends the cell sort of radius, blast radius. We've got Rasputin and Rage of the Warmind. Reason being is because if you shoot a cell, you have a chance to get another one. The Rage of the Warmind adds solar damage, and Rasputin, they proc each other, essentially. So you can get more than one cell if you add those, even though we're using Warmind's Decree. So always do that if you're going to go spec into a full Warmind build. So we're just going to spiral past this bit. On my Titan I just seem to zoom past him, but on my Warlock sometimes I get caught out. So try to stagger the Colossus. I used my Arc Rocket, which is worth using just to stagger it and get past. Because as I said, with this video you want to know what you can skip and what you can't. And I'm going to basically be killing only what's required in most cases and skipping what we don't need to. Because you are wanting to farm it to an extent. So with this room there's not a lot of skipping. The Cabal aren't required to be killed, but you want to be killing the 4 snipers, as you want to do a bit of your fighting from here, like for the start bit, so you don't want those sniping you in the back. Obviously you're going to have the seasonal mod on Breach and Clear, which debuffs enemies with a grain launcher, so we've got one on, of course, the exotic. Now I'm not saying that you want to be using Fighting Lion. An optimal loadout, I would say, for this, like the best, quickest sort of setup, would be anti-barrier scout with a spike grain launcher or blind nades, your choice. Probably spike. You don't really need the blind nades if you're at power. Then with anarchy, that would be the fastest, like the absolute premium, and probably on a Night Stalker as well. Like that's your absolute sub 15 minute platinum runs. That's what you're talking for that setup. But not everybody's a hunter main, some people are warlocks. I've already done a Titan run, so if you want to see that, you can see that. As I said, we're doing it on Warlock. So with this room there's 2 phases of goblins and minotaurs. The first wave spawns when you get close to the barriers. The second wave will spawn when most of the ads are cleared. The champions are independent. I like to take out those first when I can, just because they get in the way sort of thing when they're sniping. We'll try and get our debuffs going. Try and get your debuffs on champs with your grey launcher before you use your rocket. You'll get more out of your rocket that way. My rocket has Vorpal weapon on it, which is the best types of rockets to use on champions. A lot of people going about lasting impression. Lasting impression's good when it's a big tanky boss, what have you, but lasting impression is terrible on champions. Don't use those types of rockets unless you know exactly what you're doing with them, because they're very slow. Vorpal weapon, it's fine, it's just a flat damage buff to the champ, and it's got tracking on it, this one, so it's ideal for champs. It's ideal for most things. So we'll just deal with the minotaurs, taking those shields. Be sure that if you're make sure that you tag the champion just in case the minotaur kills the champion. The champion may likely be still alive whilst you're fighting if you're going through it quick enough. It's highly unlikely the champion will die, but if the champion does die or does fall off the map and you don't tag the champion, you will not get platinum rank, and I have seen the champion fall off the map. So just as soon as you come in this room, tag the champion if you're killing other ads, okay? That's dealt with most of that. We can press forward, but there's 2 champions below. So we'll charge our nade first, get a good angle on the champ, and then you can get our first shield break. Then we're going to do a debuff with the GL. and then a rocket, and that just about finishes a barrier or whatever champ that you're doing. Right here I'm going to use my super on the Unstoppable. I didn't quite have my Unstoppable ready properly, but that was fine. I've got a super to burn here, so you may as well use it. I'm getting plenty of ammo, I'm getting blessed here for whatever reason. But if you don't leave with full ammo, that's fine, because the build itself, I mean, we all know what Top Tree Nova does, but it really assists with, even if you haven't got heavy, you can literally just use your grain launcher, breach and clear, and your nades to debuff the champs. So the heavy's not required. What the heavy role is, mainly it's for the boss fight, and it's just for speeding things up. If you want to melt armor champion quicker, use your rocket. If you don't, then you don't need to. Just use your grain launcher. But as I was saying, you don't need to be using Fighting Line. I'm using it to spice the video up. It's as simple as that. But if you want to go ahead and just use a Void Truth Teller, that would work ample. A Spike one would be really good. As I said, you don't really need the Blinding. If you're underpowered, then go Blinding Truth Teller, go Long Range Scout, Hung Jury, Night Watch, whatever you're using, and then Anarchy. Or a decent rocket launcher would work, you know, instead of Anarchy, if you don't own Anarchy at all. So with this section, we're just going to take the 2 barriers from this part here, as you can sort of avoid their sniper attacks. Take the Unstoppable last, as that preoccupies the anti-barriers, so that they're less likely to fire you. So, and the barrier, the Unstoppable does additional damage for you against the champion. Environmental damage is on, which I don't know if people know this, but environmental damage affects the adds and you, which is a weird mod. As you know, any arc burn, solar void burn, all that stuff's incoming generally in this game. They don't like to give the player the buff anymore. They just give the enemies the buff. Probably to avoid melting Nightfall bosses. They don't like that. Bungie doesn't like that, and we've been doing that when Destiny 2 first launched. We were doing that sort of for the first 2 years span of the game, and it sort of they just didn't like that, so they wanted to get back to, right, you shouldn't be able to solo one phase Nightfall bosses. I think you should still be able to, but it should be very difficult, and we need to get back to proper strike bosses. So we don't want immune gate bosses anymore, and I'm sure everyone agrees with this. When you're fighting a boss and the only reason why you can't do more damage to him is because he's immune, the way to balance that situation is to go back to the Destiny 1 approach and make the bosses tanky. We have so much powerful, like we had a lot of powerful weapons in the game right now that can do a lot, and we've got mods that can debuff at any time, so that's like a tether with your from your weapon. So my answer is buff the value of a lot of these bosses, their HP, whether it be on Master or Grandmaster, just across the board, they should be a lot more tankier. People say, well, that's boring because it's bullet sponges, but when you have a bullet sponge target, that allows for more variation on, like, play on the boss. So your weapons play such a bigger role in what's the most effective way to kill this tanky boss. Or, well, this certain weapon, Warcliffe Coil, does extra damage to this boss. Or use Anarchy, or use a rocket, you need something with burst damage. The game has a bit more meaning, even though people didn't like the bullet sponge bosses. It's the answer to Destiny because it allows the element of variations of DPS, and it spices the game up. So they need to go back to that in my eyes. The Grandmaster ones are tanky enough, I guess, but that's just because you're under-leveled. That's the only reason that is. That's the only thing as well. If the boss was tankier on the Master level, that means on Grandmaster they're going to be even tankier still. So it's probably balanced around the Grandmaster difficulty. With that zone, you were just clearing out the 2 arc captains. You were just doing what I done on screen. There's nothing much to it. We'll get a stop here first, then we can do a super and a nade. I forgot to charge my nade, or I sort of threw my nade without charging it there, which try not to do, but it's not a big deal. Now with this barrier champion, a safe way of doing it, maybe not the fastest, but at the same time, it means the cleavers aren't going to hit you. You can sort of take his barrier from up here, so I debuffed him first with the grain launcher. Take his barrier. When we get the debuff going, we'll do a rocket. We've only got one rocket left, but that's fine, because the rockets aren't too important. As long as we've got a couple for the boss, then the champions can be dealt with just our nades and our breach and clear, basically. There'll be 2 cleavers down here, like I said, so take these first. Don't just start it, even though that'll be quicker. You'll be out of position if you do so, because then you're going to have an unstoppable spawn right on top of you. Quickly take out the cleavers, get the switch, and then we can go ahead and take an unstoppable. There'll be unstoppable that spawns. We'll do a nade right here to try and clear out any adds that spawn in with the unstoppable. Do not stop the unstoppable until the unstoppable has came out of his motion of looking around and then start to charge at you, because if you stun him too soon, the game doesn't count as a stun and you don't get the damage that you usually would when a champion stunned. You'll get the large health pool from the champion instead. So just make sure you do the stun, give it time, give the game time for the champion to turn around, look at you, and then do your stun. And you'll find that you won't have issues if you do that. Because it's critical you get that unstoppable down as soon as, because you're gonna have dogs charge at you. So you know you want to do that as soon as. Obviously, any cells you get for the dogs, take those out, because it just takes them out so fast. The Arc, not the Arc Champion, but the Arc Ultra, you can skip him. Don't be wasting rockets on this Ultra, because the Ultra's not needed for any sort of rank, and no points are needed. You'll get 100k on this as well, on this run, if you're looking to get that. So you'll find that just kill what's in front of you, skip what you can, and you'll still get 100k if you need to get your 100k Pinnacle. We'll take out a couple of these Cabal. I shot the box to my right to take the 3 snipers. Pretty simple, it takes them all out. Don't have to scout them individually that way. A stun here, get a stun, do your nade. You can either do your nade then stun. I generally like to stun then nade, because then you know he's fully in your nade then, and you will get it back. There'll be one unstoppable here. We'll just toss a nade. There's a couple of void shields and a phalanx around there, but once we aggro those adds, the unstoppable will be aggroed, and then we can take him out in either 2 phases or 1. It's up to yourself. Depends if you want to use a rocket right there. I could have used a rocket, as you don't need much heavy at the boss, because you're going to be doing a lot of manipulating with the HP of the boss, so that you can do damage. It makes sense when I get to it. You can skip that Ultra as well, and the Phalanx. Sorry, if there's any other adds alive, skip it, come down at the bottom of the hill. The adds behind you won't bother you, which is nice. Then for this section, there'll be a barrier eventually, PQ, which can be an annoying angle, but if you can sort of jump over this rock to get your nade off, because you won't expect that, because you'll be just kept firing at your last position. That way you can get an easy shield break and stuff. And you want to try and get a cell if you can, which if you get a cell with your Void Grain Launcher, whatever you're using, you'll guarantee to sell, because it's a champion. You always guarantee to sell off a champ. So that will take out any phalanxes, stuff like that. There's a couple of dogs, war beasts in front where all the champions are. I won't take those out though, but that's fine, because we're going to use our nade to take those. This is a good angle to take the champions, 2 of them. What you'll find as well, if there's a lot of adds around, the two champions will get stuck on top of each other. So maybe you're focusing on the right one or the left one or what have you, and so you're trying to use a rocket something, but it sort of hits the wrong one. That can happen. Which is why you want to focus more on your nade. When there's two of them up, focus your nade a bit more, get your debuffs, and then when it's just the last one, you feel free to use your rockets and stuff. You want to be using them as well, because you don't need a lot of heavy at the boss. With the strat I'm going to show you, which it's not a new strat, it's not something new. This Nightfall's been out for ages. To think of it like this, we've actually played this strike longer than what Destiny 1 was out before Destiny 2 came out. If that makes sense. So Destiny 1 was out 3 years, which felt like a long time, and then D2 came out. This has been out longer than what D1 was out. Okay, so that just goes to show how long we've been playing these old, very old strikes. So what I'm showing you is nothing new, but someone hasn't played this one a lot, because it hasn't been a Ordeal Nightfall much, not over the last couple of seasons. So new players, they won't know, they might not know. I would say minimum you want 2 rockets, minimum, but what we're going to do on the first floor of damage is charge your nade, and you just want to keep hitting him with your fighting line. If you've chose a Spire Grenade launcher, then that's fine, the same thing applies. You do more damage than if you're using one of those. Just keep hitting him on all his rotations, and all you want to do with this is, you do not want to do more damage than what you need to, i.e. you don't want to burst him down to half HP, because that's where you'll go wrong. Okay, you want to, well, if you blew a super, that's where you're going wrong. If you can get him half HP with some good weapons, you know, obviously if you had Anarchy you could. This isn't a run with Anarchy, but the main thing is keep your super. Then on the second plate we'll take some cover, we'll use our nade, and we'll just try and get him to around half HP. Again, depending on your loadouts, depending on what weapons you are, it'll be easier or harder depending on that. Obviously I'm using Fighting Line, which doesn't really have the damage potential. The only thing that's really helping it is the debuff. But I just thought it would be interesting to see what it's like to use it. The boss shot my nade out of my hand, which actually can kill you nearly, which it nearly did. Adds are spawning in as well, which they're on a timer. So I decided to use one of my rockets, which that's fine, because we're going to use the last rocket for the last floor of damage. So we're basically going to kill him instantly, or as soon as, before he starts spawning adds. But the reason why we took his HP so slow is so that when we get to this floor, the game will register that you need to do more DPS to spawn in the adds. That's perfect, because then we can burst him down when he's just standing still. There's no add spawn and no nothing. So essentially you're going to do around half, 50% HP in this last phase. As I said though, if you're going to be lower light than me, then you're going to have to take a different approach, which I've done a different approach on a Titan. Okay, we'll do a Healing Rift, we'll do our stacked nade, just keep hitting him with the GL. At the very end, leave it as long as you can before you use your last rocket. I had 1 rocket left. Obviously if you've got 2-3 rockets, use those. But anyways, that was the solar farm on this Nightfall. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.